What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lasser Cast. For me and my good friend over there, Danny Torkel, Dr. Zayas God, talk about horror movies and streaming shows. We are getting our boners out to talk about 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Now, I want to preface this for you guys. Last week, Danny sent a text message in our group chat with Brian from Comic Books Transformed and our friend Chris, and Future Boy Chris. And Danny says, 28 years later, Bone Temple, it's so good. It's got this scene in it that is like the scene from Sinners. Oh my God, I love this movie. If it came out 15 days earlier, it would have been my top number one for 2025. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, come on, what is he talking about? Or there's Danny again. Then I fucking saw this movie, and I have to agree. It's pretty fucking awesome. Danny,
Let's go.
brief summary. Why do you think that this movie would be your top for 2025, possibly your top for 2026?
It would be neck and neck with Sinners for me for number one of 2025. I've now seen it twice. Yesterday, Athena and I saw it at our local Regal, and it, there's so without spoiling, and I don't think we should spoil that scene, but suffice to say, the poster that you are using as the background, the poster that is in all the marketing for this film, your brain cannot wrap around what is actually happening in that moment until you're watching it. And I feel like if you just walk out of the theater and point to the poster and go, "Do you want to know what's happening in that scene?" and then you tell somebody, they won't believe you. It is one of those scenes, and I said this in our group chat, where I'm sitting in the movie theater, and the first time I saw this was at a press screening at the Union Square Regal in Manhattan, with a theater full of critics. That scene got not a standing ovation, but a loud cheering reaction, clapping of hands in the middle of the movie. And I just had this expression on my face of, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. And
Yes.
that only happens if you are watching something unbelievably amazing or laughably hilariously bad.
Yeah.
And that only happened twice for me in the last year. Once was during that scene in Sinners, and
Yeah.
once was during that scene in 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. On top of that, I think it is just an incredibly moving film. I think
Yeah.
that it's almost poetic in the way, especially Rafe Fiennes' character is dealing with his life in this world, and his relationship with the alpha zombie, Samson, as he names him. I think Rafe Fiennes' performance is, I mean, it's not a stretch to call Rafe Fiennes one of the great actors that we've had over the last 30 plus years, whether it was an Oscar nominated performance in Schindler's List, whether it was, him portraying the ultimate evil in the Harry Potter series as Voldemort, or whether it was him being absolutely hilarious in the Grand Budapest Hotel. He's always been a phenomenal actor.
Right.
This might be his greatest performance. To me, this is another Oscar level performance destined to be omitted from the horror, Oscar discussion at this time next year.
Right.
And I think where this movie is so much better than 28 Years Later. 28 Years Later felt like it was a weird case where I felt like the parts were greater than the whole.
Yeah.
uh, uh, in terms of the movie, I really enjoyed the first act of 28 Years Later, where you're living on this like almost an island off of England, connected by this long causeway where Aaron Taylor Johnson is taking his son Spike hunting and, you know, teaching him to kill the infected. Then the movie becomes something completely different in its second act. And I thought that second act was saved by Dr. Ian Kelson, played by Ray Fiennes.
Right.
I thought that second act was dragging badly until he shows up.
Right.
And then there is this what in the world ending that really felt disconnected from everything else in the movie. And I think that is the universal takeaway from
Yeah.
28 years later. Whether you liked it or not, the
Yeah.
ending just comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
This movie for me was perfect in the sense that it's so simple. You have
Yeah.
the Jimmies, and you
Right.
have the story of Spike and the Jimmies, and you have Kelson and Samson, and that's it. And those
Yeah.
two stories blend back and forth perfectly until they come together for what is maybe the most glorious last 20 minutes of a movie I've seen in a very long time.
There you go. And Danny just did his Stardust review there. Went a little over the 1 minute mark, but that's okay. I of course have to do my archaeology now and nitpick what he said. But like, so okay, we should, Danny, I think, not spoil this movie because I feel like this movie needs to be seen and this movie needs to be appreciated. So let's not spoil some of the excellent moments from this movie.
I agree with
so then,
you. And I just want to say, I just want to send this out there. There are fucking people, critics, and people who saw the movie early, like I did. I saw this last, was it Monday night? I think I saw it Monday night. We were embargoed on our reviews until Tuesday at 4:30, and then there were Thursday night screenings, and the movie opened in wide release on Friday. I saw people Wednesday on social media posting the two big things from this movie, and it drove me fucking crazy. And I sent nasty social media posts. You're a fucking asshole. You should take this down. You're ruining the experience for people. It's not even out in wide release yet. It hasn't even opened on Friday, and you're already posting pictures and videos. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So yes, I agree with you. I don't think we should spoil the key moments, but we can definitely get into the plot and the characters and everything else.
Good. So like, and we should be able to talk spoiler filled about 28 days later, weeks later, years later as well. Because first off, we should address 28 years later. What's interesting about this movie is that if you don't see that movie, let's say that you go and you see 28 days later, and then you decide to give this one a chance, I feel like you'd be like, what the fuck is going on? It's like straight from 28 years later into this. It just, the story just picks up. You know me in exposition. This movie does not bog us down with exposition. You're just supposed to know what's going on and run with it. And I really wish there were more movies like this, especially since we're just so filled with fucking franchises and reboots. Like, we know all the details. You don't have to hold our hands and walk us through why things happen. But like,
this movie does have the advantage of being a part two, though. Right. And that's one of the great advantages that part twos have, is that you don't have to spend 30 minutes expositing and creating a world. If you saw 28 years later, you know the world, you know who Spike is, you know who those, well, you don't know who they are, but you know that there's this band of blonde crazies who show up at the very end of 28 years later. So you're just kind of dropped in with them at the beginning of this movie.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about them for a second. You said the ending of the movie of 28 years later is kind of like mind blowing. You're like, what the hell did I just watch? And here's the thing, right? when people talk about 28 years later, they often say that last scene is the end of the movie. And you could say that. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, but I consider that last scene almost like an epilogue to 28 years later. And I feel like the end of 28 years later, here comes a spoiler, is when Spike's mom decides to die and Ray finds his character, like euthanizes her and then takes her skull, which is an incredibly beautiful scene. I liked 28 years later, but that scene is the scene that really made me look upon that movie with fondness. Like I ranked the movies when I did my Pete on the Street today. I ranked the movies. Basically my favorite was this one. My number one was this one. Then I put 28 Days Later. Then I put 28 Years Later, and then I put 28 Weeks Later. And you know, Danny, that I actually really like 28 Weeks Later a lot. But
I don't think there's a bad movie. I don't think there's a bad movie in this franchise. I think it's a rock solid franchise. I would have if we're just doing a quick ranking, because I thought about this the last couple days, I'd have Bone
yeah,
Temple, Days, Weeks, Years. I think Days and Weeks are really, really good especially when you watch them back to back. Days holds up. I think I said this to you for 20 years. I thought Weeks was the better movie. And then after
yeah,
rewatching them last year, I realized I think I appreciated 28 Days Later a lot more.
yeah,
Years for me feels the most inconsistent of the movies. It might have
right,
like very high highs, like the scene you just mentioned, but then there's all the stuff about like Aaron Taylor Johnson just disappears.
right,
He
right,
goes from being like he goes from being one character for the first 30 minutes, and then he becomes a completely different character in the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then he's basically erased from the movie. And
right.
it feels years later felt like a very disconnected film for me.
Yeah,
Whereas this movie was so simple and so focused on its two main plot points,
right.
and it just works so much better for me
Yeah,
than Years did. Like I
right.
almost contemplated, spoiler alert for our top 10 of 2025, which we're going to do later this week. But 28 Years Later is not in my list. And I contemplated almost retroactively putting it in my list because I feel like this movie makes the ending of that movie so much better.
Well,
But I don't
yeah,
feel like that's fair. I
right.
don't feel like that's fair. Like I did walk out of 28 Years Later being like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah,
And I I don't feel like 1 year later having
yeah,
to watch another hour and 50-minute movie should like retroactively increase the stock of Years onto my list. So it's I don't dislike it. I think it's a very good movie overall, but it
yeah.
didn't make my top 10, and I think it's my least of the franchise so far.
Okay, okay. That's an interesting point. That actually kind of makes me think about my rankings for the best of this year too. But what I was gonna say was that I talked to author Armand Rosamilia. I've been meeting with him on Sunday mornings, doing writing sessions with him and talking. And he was saying that he had heard about this movie and heard that it was doing poorly at the box office and that people were complaining about this movie. And it shocked me because I was like, this is fucking great. The audience seemed to love it when I saw it. Um, I worry because I know it's not Danny Boyle that directed it. It's Nia DaCosta, right? And I think I've only seen one other Nia DaCosta movie, and that was The Marvels. Now, with The Marvels, I don't like it a lot, but I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. And Nia DaCosta, just watching this movie, I'm like, shit, she is really talented. And then I was wondering
You
too,
didn't see
because
Candyman? Her
that's
Candyman
the other
movie?
fucking one. The Candyman remake or reboot, whatever. I did not see that.
Oh, I really like that. I thought that fell apart is too strong of a term. I felt like it skipped an act. It's one of those movies where it goes from point A to point B to point D, and then the movie's over. And I was like, there needed to be 20 more minutes of that movie. Coleman Domingo, who I love, shows up in that movie and is
Yeah.
really good. And then, like, out of nowhere, it just like skips to the end. And but I thought she did a great job of expanding on like Candyman lore, and I just think she's a really good filmmaker. I enjoyed The Marvels. I to me it's, you know, it's an easy movie to pick at if you're an MCU hater. Um, but I thought it was fine. You know, I do
Yeah.
think it's interesting that she has this movie out now. Chloe Zhao, who did The Eternals, another poorly rated MCU movie, is probably going to get an Oscar nomination for Hamnet this year. You know, it's kind of one of those things of like, oh, when the director Ryan Coogler is probably going to get nominated for Best Director for Sinners. He made, you know, one of the most highly praised MCU films with Black Panther and then Wakanda Forever. So it's interesting to see a lot of the directors that we're talking about in just the zeitgeist right now are like former Marvel MCU people.
Right. Yeah. I
This
mean,
was also written by Alex Garland too.
right. Okay. So you just took my point, man. That's what I was gonna say. Is that Alex Garland? People have criticism about him. He is maybe my favorite writer right now, film writer. He has novels as well. This might be a little boring, but I just want to run through his screenography real quick, or his filmography. He wrote 28 Days Later. He wrote Sunshine, which I think is an underrated, amazing movie. He wrote. He's not credited for 28 Weeks. But what's that?
I
What'd you
love
say?
Sunshine. Love it.
Oh, okay, okay. He wrote Never Let Me Go. I didn't see that one, but then he did Bread, which I think is fantastic. Ex Machina, Annihilation, another movie I feel is like totally underrated. Great fucking sci-fi movie. Men, okay, I can see it. People having an issue with that one. It's weird. Intriguing though. Civil War, I see people having an issue with that one. Then he wrote 28 Years Later, and then he wrote this one as well. So I feel like his filmography is fucking tight, you know?
Uh, I didn't see Civil War, but and honestly, I think I've skipped that just because I don't want to watch a futuristic movie about, you know, about current events. Um,
Right.
you know, I could see Civil War becoming a documentary in a few years. Uh,
Right.
so I've kind of avoided that just because I'm not in the mood. Men I did not like. Other than that, though, I mean, Annihilation and Ex Machina back to back are like, those are sci-fi flexes, like huge
Yep.
sci-fi flexes.
Right.
Yeah, I've been a big Alex Garland fan. Sunshine is always like, if people ask me for like an underrated movie or like a movie that slipped through the cracks, Sunshine and Dark City are like my two go-tos.
Right. Oh yeah.
And Sunshine also has like this incredible cast of like people who within the next year would go on to absolute superstardom, like future Oscar winners, future billion-dollar franchise leads. Like, I
Right.
think, isn't Chris Evans is just like one of the people in that movie.
Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans, Rose Byrne, uh, Mark Strong.
Hiroyuki
Yeah.
Sanada.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fucking phenomenal movie. But like the reason why I bring up Alex Garland, well, actually you did, but it's important to note that this movie, it's not. There's no moment that's like, oh, they have to have this moment because it is a horror movie. They have to have this moment because it's a 28 whatever movie. Like you're not watching this like when you watch a movie of any kind of horror movie, you're like, oh, okay, we're in the third act. Now there's going to be this sort of like slaughter scene where a lot of the main characters get killed off, or there's going to be this moment where it's like really tense and you're expecting a jump scare. This is not that movie. This is a movie that takes what was established before and just runs with it and sees what you can do that could be like interesting, but even more than interesting is to have this emotional impact. This movie has much more of an emotional impact than at least 80% of the stuff
100%.
that we cover on this channel. You know?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why I was loving this movie almost from the very beginning.
Right.
The
Right.
way it balances its like intense gore and intense brutality,
Right.
and then it counterbalances that with these like somber, poetic,
Right.
human moments with
Right.
Ray Fiennes. And I want to shout out the actor Chai Lewis Parry, who plays Samson. Like I he to go from playing this, like, the big joke about 28 years later was that you have the alpha zombie hanging dong, and that's all that people talked about. And Chai Lewis Parry makes you forget that you're staring at a large naked beast of a man,
Yep.
because their scenes together are, if you spent 28 years alone where all you did was collect the dead and build an ossuary, a bone temple, a titular bone temple out of these dead bodies, and you would literally talk to anyone that you
Right.
got to
Right.
speak to. There's this great moment later in the movie where, and again, I don't want to spoil things, but I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, where um, Jimmy meets Kelson.
Right.
And this is a character that we have been trained for an hour plus to view as one of the most evil characters we've seen in a movie in a long time. Jack O'Connell playing, Lord Jimmy Crystal. And he has this amazing moment where he just stops and goes, "I like you. You're really easy to talk to."
Right.
And I'm just sitting there, and I genuinely felt the same, because you sit there and for like 60 to 90 minutes of this movie, you just listen to Ray Fiennes talking almost to himself.
Right.
And he has such a and this is a guy who's played some of the most evil characters ever, and he has such a
Right.
calming, welcoming voice.
Right.
Like, you wonder, like, that voice I can see getting through to the alpha zombie. You know what I mean?
I do know
Like,
it's
granted, he's like shooting him up on opiates, and he's riddling him with drugs so that he can like break through the virus. But
right.
I thought the movie was like darkly funny. There's
Yeah.
like a lot of like humor, like where like I almost felt uncomfortable to laugh, but then like other people laughed, and I went, okay, okay, like it's and he has this great line at the beginning about how he's he's NHS, so everything's for free, and I was like, oh, that's clever, like, you know.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but yeah, I think you really hit on. There is a scene in this movie that I think is going to go down as the scene of the year for me and for many other people. But before that moment, I was just so into the quiet, like almost reflective tone that those scenes had, and they're like, mixed in
Yeah.
with these horribly brutal moments with Jack O'Connell and his gang. The barn sequence is fucking terrifying. Even the opening scene of this movie is like just horrifying.
Yeah.
And it's like to see what he's created amongst these, jimmies. And if the history of Jimmy and the blonde wig and everything else, and where that comes from,
Yeah.
it's so much fucking darker. It's even
Yeah.
like I've had people complain that, oh, Alex Garland and Danny Boyle should not have made the Jimmy it's making light of the whole Jimmy Savile thing. And I think what I like about it, and again, I'm not British, so I could totally see you, if you're a British person, I could totally see you having a negative reaction to that 100%.
Right.
But as an
Right.
outsider who like found out who Jimmy Savile was much later on and watched like one Netflix documentary about him, I feel like so much of Jack O'Connell's character is based few years, those very few years of childhood that he had. And this is another great moment he has
Right.
with Ray Fiennes, where he's talking about, like, you're an old man. You remember what life was like before this shit happened. And
Right.
he says, like, this all went down when I was 8. And if you go back to the first movie, 20 days later, came out in, I think, 2002. So if
Yeah.
you were a young kid in England, Jimmy Savile was probably a guy you watched on TV. Yeah,
Right.
for the adults, you had maybe heard rumors about him being a, you know, pedophile or into weird things and young girls. But if
Yeah.
you were an 8-year-old in 2002 England, you probably knew who Jimmy Savile was because he was one of the most famous people in the country. All of that stuff about him really wasn't known until, or like made widely public until, I think, after his death in 2011. So it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense that if you're going to like he dresses his Jimmies as Teletubbies, and
Right.
he puts on he makes them dress as the most famous person in England at that time. And so I feel like it makes sense, like,
Yes.
I don't know.
It's funny
I
that.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that, like, um, you said you used the term dark humor, right? And if you watch this movie, like, if this movie came out 15 years ago, you would probably think this is a really batshit fucking crazy movie, and you would think that the previous movie was a batshit crazy movie as well. You'd be like, "Oh man, they're really pushing the envelope. What kind of drugs were they taking when they made this movie?" But we live in a batshit crazy world now, right? So, I mean, when you think of the logistics of it, when you think of the two main characters, the two big performances of this movie, Ray Fiennes is a guy who is just actively building this temple out of the bones of the dead. And in the first movie, he's almost looked at as like a boogeyman or something like that by the people that don't know him. And so, you think like, oh my God, he is kind of scary. But then when you get to know him, you're like, this is the sweetest man in fucking Britain, right? Then you see Jack O'Connell's character, and for him, he's like terrifying as well. But it only works because Jack O'Connell's a good actor. We keep talking about Sinners. He's the main fucking bad guy in Sinners as well, and he's able to walk this line, which is like he's ridiculous, where like another actor or like writing that wasn't as good would make him seem goofy and annoying. But he's just on that line where he's like silly and you can kind of laugh at him, but he's also terrifying. But then there's even another layer involved, which is you still feel from that first scene of 28 years later, this is a child who essentially watched everyone around him get slaughtered by people infected with the rage virus. And he's created this belief system. He has this mental illness because of his trauma. And you kind of understand, you're sympathetic to it. So, I mean, it's crazy to me that, at a different time, if we had seen this years ago, we'd be like, this movie is insane. What are we even fucking watching? But here we are, like, empathizing with these people that live in this crazy fucking world. I think it's fucking amazing. And I think that the two performances are like what make this whole movie work.
I think it's all the performances. I think like I said, Chai Lewis Parry, who plays Samson, I think that's an incredibly hard role to play, to be at both the most terrifying rip the shoulders off and eat the brains out of the skull zombie, and then to also be an incredibly sympathetic character as well. I think Erin Kellyman as Jimmy Inc. is so awesome. And I like that, like, while Lord Jimmy Crystal, Jack O'Connell, is, you can tell that, like, the Jimmies have bought into everything that he's saying, but she kind of thinks he's full of shit from like the get go. Like,
Right.
there's no, like, she believes in old Nick, and she genuinely thinks, like, you know, that, Satan is out there and running things. She thinks Ray Fiennes is old Nick because she watches him with the binoculars, covered obviously. His skin is orangey red because he's covered himself in iodine to protect from the virus, and then he's dancing and hanging out with the alpha zombie, and she's like, oh, he must be Satan, and he's dancing with his demons.
Right.
But aside from that, when, like, you could tell from the beginning, her relationship with Jimmy is, she's the one who is kind of calling him out, or you know questioning him throughout the movie, like not believing his bullshit. And then she kind of has to like watch over Spike when he inadvertently becomes a Jimmy. Uh, eh, eh, so I think she's great in it. I think there's really four. There's two main characters. There's four essential characters, and that's really it though. That's what makes
Yep.
it, that's why I love it so much. Just this,
Yep.
and I made this point earlier, it's the simplicity of this movie.
Yes.
In 28 years later, we first had to we understand that there's this causeway from the main island of Great Britain that leads out to this little island, where they have effectively restarted civilization, almost like The Village. M. Night Shyamalan's The Village,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're like, and so you first have to like acclimate yourself to that environment. Then they go to the mainland on that like epic causeway shot, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be cool. Now we're gonna see the infected. Then we find out, then like like I said earlier, the movie just completely changes to something else, where now Spike and his mom are searching for a doctor. The movie's kind of going off the rails. Ray finds his character. Okay, things are cool again. And then, the movie just throws the jimmies at you at the end, and fades to black, and you're just like, what? And
Right.
this movie is basically literally before the words "the Bone Temple" show up on the screen, we get this incredibly horrifying scene with the Jimmies, where
Right.
they are like indoctrinating Spike into the group. Then we get then it just, for the next hour and 40 minutes, it's just bouncing back and forth. And I thought the pacing of the film was perfect. Every time, every time the movie got, and this is coming from me, got like, like too nasty with like the Jimmies committing these disgusting acts of charity, or gruesome violence, it would
Right.
jump back to Ray Fiennes, and you'd have a reprieve where and I don't know, the first time I saw this movie, I'm sitting there, and literally from the beginning of the movie, from the first time he's on screen with Samson, I'm sitting there going, like, really nervous, like,
Yep.
don't get
Yep.
infected, don't
Yep.
don't like don't fuck around, just hit him with
Right.
the blow dart, like, what are you doing?
Right.
And I just thought the pacing of those two parts of the movie, with these two lead characters working in total contrast of each other, and the way that they come together at the end, I
Yep.
I just loved it so much. I've seen people complain about it. I know it has like a 95 plus rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, shit.
Uh,
Okay.
I've seen people say things like it's good, it's not great, it and look, that's fine, but I I cannot remember a time where and I said this in my short review that I posted on the channel. I've been privileged enough to go to a bunch of press screenings in my life. I've never been to a press screening that got a loud roaring ovation in the middle of the movie. I've
Yeah.
never been to a press screening where people were like clapping for a scene in the middle of the movie.
Right.
Um, and I think I can count probably on two hands the amount of times that I've gone to the movies and I've just sat there with my hands like on my face, being like, I cannot believe what I am watching right now.
Right.
And for a good reason. For a good
Yeah.
reason. Because I've done that. I've done that a couple times where I've been like, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. And it's like, you
Yep.
know, bat nipples on a suit in 1997.
Madam
Uh,
Web. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Uh, like the last time, I think, and I feel like this is how I know this is going to be like the horror movies that rank really high for me or are my number ones. The last two times that I felt like that in the movie theater were the scene in Sinners, um, and uh, basically the entire film of The Substance.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You go.
Uh,
Yeah.
multiple scenes, especially the last 20 minutes of The Substance, where
Yeah.
you at like when the blood guys are start shooting, I'm just like, what is happening? Like, and
Right.
I couldn't believe what I was watching that first time.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So f- I I know it's January. We are recording this on January 18th, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I genuinely cannot think. I cannot imagine that this movie is not my number one of 2026 for horror movies. And if
That's
it's
bold.
not, and if it's not, then we are about to go into one of the best years of horror in a very long time.
Yeah, man.
And I made this and I said this, I posted this on Facebook for what it's worth. I've seen three horror movies in the theater in January. I saw We Bury the Dead, I saw Primate, and I saw this twice. So I've seen three new released horror movies, and I think I'm ready to say unequivocally, this is the best theatrical horror January of all time because they don't release good movies usually in January. January
Right.
is
Right.
where they dump the leftovers, right? I
Right.
think I made the joke that it was either last January or the January before. The first movie that I saw in the movie theater was Night Swim, and oh my god, that movie sucked.
Right. Right.
I remember like the American remake of The Grudge, the not the one with Buffy in it, like the
Right.
remake that came out in like 2019 or
Yeah.
January of 2020. And I was like, they're just releasing the garbage into the theater. And I've
Yeah.
seen three movies that very easily can and likely will show up in my top 10 of the year. And it's 3.5 weeks into the year.
Damn, man. Yeah. I mean,
No, it's 3 weeks into the year.
yeah, it's fucking mind blowing. I gotta check these other movies out too. But I did fucking love this movie as well. And you know, I am curious to see what a third installment in this franchise would be. I hope that this movie does well. I hope that like what Armand was saying was maybe he didn't have the right information or whatever. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes does help a lot. I just really like thoroughly love this. It would be amazing if Ray Fiennes got an Academy award nomination for this, but I think he's probably not going to, just because of the way that horror works. So, I mean, we just got to
And
just give it
also,
free.
not spoiling anything, but to your point, I think this movie, you will walk out of this movie going, at least I did, walk out of this movie going, oh my God, I can't wait for part 3.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
think
did.
this movie does. And what's funny is I think this movie basically did the same thing as the first movie, where you said it, where the ending of the movie was the mom gets euthanized and and Spike gets to put her skull on the top of the bone temple. And then the epilogue is the Jimmies. This movie
Right,
does a similar thing where the ending of the movie is the plot, the two plots, the two lead characters, they come together. And then there's this almost epilogue ish moment that sets you up for the next movie. And
right.
I'll just say this. Both times I saw it, there was a loud gasp from the crowd
Yes,
of like,
yes.
like you heard it in the movie theater. And that I think is a great sign for whoever is directing part 3, whether it is Nia DaCosta or if Danny Boyle is coming back. I almost called him Danny Garland. But I'll tell you, like, you can tell that this was not a Last Jedi situation where, like, you make the first movie and then you're like, all right, new director, here you go.
Right,
All right, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. Wait,
right,
what? Uh,
right, right.
you could tell there was a clear, Alex Garland wrote both movies. Danny Boyle, I'm sure, and Nia DaCosta, I'm sure, had lengthy conversations about this universe and about this world. And I love this movie so much. Between
Yeah,
this and I if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend her. I think it was 2020 or 2021 Candyman movie.
sure.
Um, between those two movies, like, she's a badass horror filmmaker. She's got some incredible shots. There's a couple scenes in this movie just from a cinematography standpoint where it just blew my mind.
Yeah,
Like, couple overhead shots in particular, which when you see the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah. Yeah, so guys, what the fuck are you doing spending 42 minutes watching our review? Go see this movie. It is as good as Danny says it is. So, Mr. Torkel, you know what time it is.
Oh, yeah. What's on the channel? Well, I have. If you are looking at the time of this video and going, I'd much rather hear about this movie in 60 seconds, I posted a short review where I don't spoil anything and I basically fit 43 minutes of praise into 58 seconds. But Pete and I just covered both seasons of Castle Rock on Netflix. That is still up on Netflix. A pretty cool show set in the universe of Stephen King. We were inspired to do that because we covered It, Welcome to Derry, and what was the other uh, thing that we were covering? It was It, Welcome to Derry, and I don't even
Oh,
remember now.
Talamasca.
There's so.
Talamasca.
Oh well, yeah. Uh, but next week, um, we are going to be getting together later this week to find to get our top 10 of 2025 out there. So yes, you can look forward to that. You'll get our top 10 with some, you know, honorable mentions and discussion as we work through our lists.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So, guys, please make sure that you give this video a like. You know, we could get that number up there. Let's get some views on here, get us to the number of the beast. Make sure that you subscribe. And we promise that us Affles will be back to show us our dongs